Hey, there we go, live on Facebook. Good evening, everybody. This is Brandon Collinsworth, Texas NORML Officer. Really excited to be with you guys tonight. I've got a really good community engagement conversation to have with my guests. I'm really looking forward to having these guys on. You guys are really going to enjoy what they have to say. I was going to start with one little bit of trivia. Did you know that according to a UT Tyler poll in May, 60% of Texans responded supporting legalization of cannabis in some regard, um, whether that be at a local level, a state level, a federal level. And while we've had difficulty making inroads here and changing the laws at the state level, it's been far from the case at the local level. And just this year, we're going to have 5 Texas cities that will vote to decriminalize cannabis. And our speakers tonight are playing an integral role in making that happen. Tonight, they'll tell you how they got into activism, how you can get involved with them. It'll be a highly informative meeting. Just be sure to have your questions ready at the end. You can post them in the comments, and we'll get to them if we have time. So without that, I will introduce my two speakers of the evening. We got Austin Zamhariri of Texas Cannabis Collective. He's the executive director of that group. It's a nonprofit focused on breaking news, advocacy, community events, and working since 2016. He served DFW in the Texas state in trying to to change the laws in the state at both the local and state level. Along with him, I have Julie Oliver, the co-founder and executive director of Ground Game Texas, who's previously run two 100% pack-free campaigns for the U.S. House of Representatives in Texas's 25th congressional district. In addition to her role in that executive director of Ground Game Texas, she served her community by volunteering weekly at local food banks and volunteer board position with the Common Defense, a progressive veterans nonprofit. I am so excited to have these two with me.
Thank you, Brandon. We're thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending your time with us. So really, I guess I'll start with you, Austin, with your site and everything you've been doing with that news thing. How about you kind of let everybody know how you got involved with activism and what you've gone through here?
Oh, it's a long story. I've been a consumer of cannabis for almost 20 years, over 20 years now. And I've lived in Texas my whole life. I was born here, grew up here. And Texas cannabis was a little bit different in the years 1999 and 2000. We were just starting to see like a lot of medical stuff, pop up on the West Coast. And so, I had been engaged, kind of in that space until 2010. I was arrested, simple Class B charge, and I got to have a taste of the criminal justice system in Texas, especially when it comes to drug-related arrests, specifically cannabis. And so I spent a lot of time, 2 years of my life trying to handle that. And then eventually they legalized marijuana, full legalization, recreational in Colorado and Washington State in 2012. And we went and visited 2015, fell in love with it. Was like, oh man, how hard can it be to change marijuana laws in Texas? I'll change that and I'll stand behind a glass counter and be a awesome bud tender. And so 2016 early, I came back and looked in different ways to get involved. And when I tell you that I couldn't have been an effective advocate or known even where to start without the local NORML organizations, specifically Texas NORML, that's 100% truth. I wouldn't be who I am or where I am without all of the resources and the leadership that come from the chapter in Austin. And so I'm very thankful that here we are still in 2022, right? And Texas NORML still leading the way, putting out, effective information, standing in a leadership role, helping people get engaged. And so that's really just my story of how I got involved.
Absolutely. And, we definitely couldn't do it without you guys up in the DFW area. We'll get to some of the things y'all have got going on here in a little bit later in this meeting. So we can't wait to get to that. And then we'll bring on Julie Oliver. You guys have probably heard of her organization, Ground Game Texas, through their work they've done in Austin and San Marcos up to this point. They've also got upcoming events in Harker Heights, Collin, and Denton, up in Austin's neck of the woods. So, Julie, how about same for you? How about you give us a little bit of your background and how you got into activism?
Well, thank you again for having me tonight. My name is Julie Oliver. I probably was maybe late to becoming an activist. I have to be honest. I was an active voter, but in 2017, I have 4 kiddos, but one of my kids has a lot of healthcare issues, and I came in kind of through the healthcare angle, and I decided to run for Congress. And in fact, was invited to the NORML candidate forums. Each time I ran twice, and really grateful for just having a leadership role in trying to connect people, just everyday people, with issues that people who are elected can have influence on. So Jax, thank you for always inviting us to those candidate forums. But I got into the advocacy area when I realized that one, God bless the people, including Austin and Jax, who show up at the state legislature every 2 years to say, please, dear God, do something about this. And there have been small steps in the right direction, but not big enough steps in the right direction. But what really made me want to get more involved is talking to veterans in the Collin and Copperas Cove area who have been asking me, when I was running for Congress, can you do 2 things? 1, help me get my disability claim met in a timely fashion with the VA. 2, take marijuana off of Schedule 1. I need alternatives to opioids. I need alternatives to surgeries and steroid shots, and cannabis can be that for me. And as recently as, March of this year, when I had my most recent in-depth conversation with a veteran who just moved back from New Mexico, where we know they fully legalized marijuana for recreational purposes, but prior to that had medicinal usage available to veterans in the community at large. He told me, he's like, I had to move back to Collin for family issues. I was on the perfect formulation to deal with my PTSD, and Texas's compassionate use is not nearly enough. And he goes, I'm now on 4 different antidepressants because I'm terrified of getting arrested by police officers. And I can't afford that. I can't afford to be in jail. And so I'm on 4 antidepressants and I feel terrible. And he's like, if there's anything you can do, I'm fully in favor of that. And so this is really my heart comes at this really first and foremost from the veterans angle, because I realize if you have put your life on the line to serve our country, we should be doing everything we can. We should be rolling out red carpets for you. But marijuana legalization is the smallest thing that we can do, and we absolutely should do it. But beyond that, I mean, there's so much misinformation about cannabis. And until we are able to fully study the effects of cannabis, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? We can't do that until it's removed from Schedule 1. And so I am fully in favor. Actually, y'all, I'm in favor of full legalization of all drugs. But if we want to make a dent in the cartel trade, we need to legalize everything. But at a minimum, in 2022, we need to be legalizing cannabis.
Definitely, I appreciate that, and it is a shame how hard we're having to work to get our veterans the proper medicine. Hopefully,
Absolutely.
we can make further strides, and that honestly is one of the things that I wanted to touch on with your upcoming work in Collin. That is a real surprise to me that you've been able to make such inroads in that area, just knowing what the local politics there are like. So that's been very impressive.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I have such a soft spot in my heart for Collin and Copperas Cove. I want to go back to Copperas Cove next year. But I have such a soft spot from campaigning there for 4 years. I don't live there. It's an hour outside of where I live. But the community I met and the folks that I met there, I knew that I had to do, I wasn't elected, so there's nothing I can do about disability claims. But I was like, gosh darn it, if I can honor my commitment to doing something about cannabis decrim, I'm going to do that. And really, really grateful for the folks who actually collected the signatures in Collin. I only did it a couple of days because, like I said, it's an hour away from my home. But for the folks who are on the ground doing that work, including Austin, thank you. Austin came to our launch there in Collin. That's when I met him. So grateful for you. But I want to keep going back. I love Collin, and it's the least we can do for the veterans organization or the veterans community that lives there.
Absolutely. And that does bring me, I wanted to ask you, Austin, about the Decrim Denton and the work you put in up there. Can you tell us a little bit about your on the ground time there and when you were going and knocking on doors and getting signatures?
It's, it's a grind. You're literally getting your hands dirty. When we talk about real activism and advocacy work, sometimes it's about showing up. Sometimes, it's about writing a letter, and sometimes it's about showing up and just, really getting nitty gritty. And that's what we had to do in Denton is, this is my community. I graduated from Denton and grew up in Denton. I know almost every street in that city. And so, the team in Denton physically, because I actually live in Fort Worth, but Denton is only about 30 minutes away. And so my activity there, knocking on doors. Julie, Julie is doing some hard work in El Paso, and I know it's hot there. And so she truly can understand, getting out there. And, I think the last day of early voting for primaries, it was freezing weather on the last day. And I, was right there out there outside of, a local polling place, gathering signatures in freezing weather because, nobody else is going to do that work. And there's a misconception out there that, they're going to legalize marijuana. It's only a matter of time. They're going to legalize marijuana. It's only a matter of time, right? That doesn't come without hard work, without tough grit, and with that strong Texas attitude that, backbreaking work will provide, yield results. And being from Texas, we all know that nothing in Texas comes easy. You really gotta grind for it. So it was grueling. Sometimes you had to get out there and talk to some people who you didn't know what their position was going to be. But I'll be honest with you, this is a winning issue. And more often than not, we talk to people like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Or, oh yeah, I use it for medical purposes. Or there's a lot of support in Denton. And that really is just a microcosm of attitudes across the entire state of Texas.
And for people that aren't aware, everybody thinks, oh, the city centers and stuff, they have these more liberal mindsets. Denton's not exactly a liberal hub of the DFW area. For us that know that area, that county and everything has long fought the progressive nature of things that even Dallas supported. They very often break away from the thought process of Dallas and Fort Worth, right?
Yeah, it's Denton. So, DFW is kind of a triangle. There's two I-35s, lucky us, that connect right in the city of Denton, which is about 30 miles north of both Dallas and Fort Worth. And so it's just kind of like central triangle. Denton is at the very top, and then you take I-35 another hour north to Oklahoma. But Denton is not you wouldn't call it a liberal city. I use that term very loosely. What does give it that flavor, though, is the 30,000, 25,000, 30,000 students at UNT that really tend to speak up and have their voices heard. I will say this about Denton. There's only ever been 3 ballot initiatives ever in the city of Denton. One was for fracking ban. Another one was to allow liquor stores, I believe. And this is the third one, is this decriminalization campaign. And it got more signatures than any of the other ones. So, it looks very promising from a city standpoint. So very excited about the work that's being done there.
Absolutely. And that honestly brings me to the thing I wanted to have this subject up for. with the local movements, you can have ballot initiatives, you can get signatures and get things done in your individual cities, whether that be Austin, Denton, El Paso, or Far East Texas and Tyler and places like that. You just have to put the work in to make your local government see it. Whereas at the state level, as we all know, we're kind of at the mercy of the Texas legislature. So that's why local and community engagement is so important, is because you can actually make larger changes at your local level than you can at the state level a lot of times. But if we continue to make these local changes, we can move things forward at a state level. So that was kind of my focus for this. What are your thoughts on that ideology of, working through small segments to make a greater good for the state?
I think Julie needs to answer that question.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just dropped into the chat. All politics starts local, right? It literally is. And the fact that we have these, local control, which is what we're using basically the home rule charter that the Texas Constitution has granted to cities across Texas. We're using local control to affect local change. And it's the power of the initiative is a very, very powerful tool in the hands of citizens. We don't have citizen-led ballot initiatives at the state level. You may have heard of Florida, doing a $15 statewide, ballot campaign in 2020. Or South Dakota and Montana doing ballot initiatives on marijuana legalization. We don't have that ability at the state level here in Texas, but we do have it in most cities across Texas at the local level. And I'm being asked, how many home rule cities are there? I'm not sure how many there are, because it's given that you are a home rule city unless you forego being a home rule city. And there have been some cities that have given up that privilege. Arlington, of all places, you cannot do a ballot initiative in Arlington, Texas. So what does that mean? If you're a citizen that wants to see an ordinance change or a charter change in your city, you can't collect signatures and have it go to the ballot for a vote in Arlington, Texas. That's more the exception to the rule. Most cities are home rule cities. Houston is a home rule city. Denton is, Dallas, San Antonio, El Paso, Austin. So all of the largest cities in Texas are home rule cities. So we can, by citizen initiative, bring together a proposal that everybody can vote on, a general election, and actually affect change that way. It's basically bypassing our city council, saying if city council won't take this up and city council won't vote in favor of marijuana decrim, we'll put it to the ballot and see how voters feel about it. And once the voters vote yes, like they did in Austin, 85% of the voters in Austin voted in favor of marijuana decrim, that becomes the law of the city. So APD, Austin PD, cannot issue citations or arrest people for Class A, Class B, Class C misdemeanors. But that's a very, very powerful thing in the cities. And this can be replicated everywhere that this power of the initiative resides in Texas. Like I said, there are a few cities that don't have it. If you ever have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. But if you're thinking, dude, I want to do this in my city, do it. It's incredible. Ground Game was behind the scenes in Denton. We did the verification to make sure that we had registered voters signing the petition, but this was all the work of activists on the ground, including Austin, including Decrim Denton, including Students for Sensible Drug Policy. I'm just so grateful, including former city council members. I mean, there were a lot of people on the ground doing this work, and it is grueling work. Like Austin said, it's in Texas. You're either in sub-freezing temperatures or you're in 100-degree heat. There is no in between. But it's a way to affect change, and it really works. So I'm really, really grateful for the folks who are committed to this work in Texas. And let's do more cities in 2023, for sure.
Absolutely. And can you I laid out a little bit earlier, but can you go into a little bit about the places you are currently working on and, how those are going?
Absolutely. So we've collected all of the signatures in the cities that we'll see a November ballot initiative in. They include, like I said, we work behind the scenes just doing voter registration verification in Denton. We helped Mono Amiga and San Marcos. We did Collin, Harper Heights, and Elgin. So those are the 5 cities where we'll see marijuana decrim initiatives on the ballot. We have a couple other cities in South Texas where we did a $15 minimum wage ballot initiative for city employees. And in El Paso, golly, I wish we were doing marijuana decrim at the same time as we're doing a climate charter change out here. So having the city address climate change. But I wish, I have so many young people asking me, what are you going to do about marijuana? Next year, give us next year, we'll come back. But we're working to build a coalition in San Antonio and in Houston for next year to do marijuana decrim. So if you are in either one of those cities and you want to help us, please reach out. It's going to take all of us to do this. Gathering thousands of signatures is no easy feat. Even as easy an issue as marijuana decrim, you still literally have to have a wet signature. That means somebody has to take your page, put their name, signature, address, and date of birth on it. And just multiply that times, 30,000, and, you get some sense of how many hours it takes and how much manpower it takes to do this.
And when in your season, the experiences you've had, you've seen a lot of people that had never done activism before, correct? And this was the first time out, and they just jumped in and got signatures and talked to people.
Absolutely. It's so exciting to see how many folks, they may not know candidates. They may not even know, like, what does a county judge do? Are they a judge? No, really, they're like the mayor of the county. But I didn't know that till like maybe 4 years ago. I didn't know that a county judge was basically the mayor of the county. But an issue is easy to understand. Do you want police to be able to arrest somebody for a Class A misdemeanor for marijuana possession? Nope. Okay, sign this. Let's now, I call it Texas two-step. It's a two-step process. You have to sign the petition, then you have to go vote for it. Voting for it is what actually will make it the law of the city. But yeah, to see people, start their activism career around this has been remarkable. And we're seeing it in every city we've been in. It's been just a beautiful thing to see people come out and say, yeah, I can support, and to see the people asking us, can you please come to my city? And we don't have, I'm like, we're full up right now, but y'all can do this. Let us help you. You can do this. And we're happy to help activists in their own cities start the process and do this work.
That is awesome. And I did kind of want to touch on some of Austin's events that they've got going on up in the Dallas area. You guys, if you're not checking out Texas Cannabis Collective, you really should. It's a go-to spot for, state news, especially for cannabis, but they do have national news. They have a fantastic podcast. I've been recently listening to it. It is really good. But Austin, can talk about some of the stuff you guys have going on with the podcast, with your upcoming events. I know you guys are co-sponsoring the march coming up and everything. So touch on some of that for us.
Right. So we, in this whole process of building a network and doing outreach, building up social media platforms and just different avenues by which you can bring communication and education to the public. It's just something that we're always striving to do. And sometimes we take on a lot of different projects, but one of them was definitely a podcast that we wanted to get out. Me and a lot of my team, we have a lot of special privilege and access to a lot of people across the state, really across the country, that a lot of just the casual consumer, the casual, person doesn't have that kind of access. And so we wanted to utilize that and create kind of just a friendly conversation based around 2 subjects, really, Texas and cannabis. And you can talk about a whole lot, really, in just one major city. There's a whole lot of culture, a lot of history that you can find. We've talked to people from, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, El Paso. We've talked to, people who are running for office. We've talked to state representatives, district attorneys. In fact, Julie Oliver, we just recorded last night. So that one is dropping currently. So, we want to stay engaged and make sure that these conversations are being had and that they're being had by, people who can be trusted in the community to have those conversations. And they're not just one side or the other. We talk to people from all across the political spectrum, and there's a lot of ideas out there, and we want to keep having those conversations, right? And bringing that. As far as events go, you touched on it earlier. We do a lot of events. We were able to co-host the Texas Veterans for Medical Marijuana event in Collin, which was a great event, and there was a lot of conversation and dialogue, and I know we were able to get a bunch of signatures that day, and people admitted into the Texas Compassionate Use Program. It was, those are the kinds of events that we're looking to do. You're right, we are doing a big march. And normally DFW NORML in the past has done it, but we're kind of collaborating on that event this year in October, and we're hoping to make it another loud, public display. My city here in Fort Worth has been, our district attorneys have always just wanted to keep going after this issue. And I think it's going to be prudent for us to have a big public display, be very loud, going into the elections. I think part of our goal as an organization is to make sure people stay galvanized, right? And make sure people stay active and engaged. And so that's our goal. We're a part of other events that are coming up as well. The Texas Cannabis Roundup here in DFW with the Hemp Business Builder team and the Greenlight Events team. We're also doing an event in San Antonio here in about 2 weeks. So check out our page if you're in the local San Antonio area. A free event that is a Friday night mixer. I think it's on the 22nd and 23rd. And so, anything that we can do to act as ancillary support or provide backup, whether it's from a media standpoint, from a financial standpoint. I know, with the Texas NORML team, we will always, when it comes to the Capitol, we will always be there to continue to amplify that message. And me and Jax have been at that Capitol at wee hours of the night. So we will continue to do that. So thank you.
I heard my name and I was like, what? No, I'm kidding. But no, Austin, I wanted to chime in if you don't mind, Brandon. We've got a couple questions that I do want to get to, but Julie was talking about how she's come to our candidate forums in the past. Austin was actually featured in our first educational exhibit in the state capitol as part of our decriminalization effort. And so that was, we met at that lobby day before, and then you got involved and we got you participating on that. So very important stuff that we're doing. And I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit more about community engagement during the interim. So, in cities where Julie and Ground Game Texas and Mike are doing their thing, it's very important to make sure that you're getting people registered to vote so that they can vote in November. In the places where signatures are still being collected, make sure you're helping with that signature effort. There's also going to be, a lot of election items happening in November in Texas, just 6 days after the general election. Our legislators start pre-authoring or pre-filing legislation here in Texas. So we have a lot to do. And to that end, Texas NORML is currently working right now on an updated version of our voter's guide. I created that back in 2012. We've been doing it every election cycle. Yes, I love it. It's an amazing thing. And we did do a primary one because it's important. In many districts, they're so gerrymandered. The only time you really get to have a say might actually be at the primary. So if you have a district that, let's say, leans red and there's two R candidates that one is better on cannabis than the other, you can have an effect in that manner. Also, the political process is going on. I think The Republicans have had their statewide convention, but the Democratic convention is coming up. So if you want to be engaged in that as well, it's super important. And then I also wanted to remind everyone, Julie was talking about how she ran for Congress. And I think it's really important that during the interim, we continue to remember that things at the federal level need to be pushed forward. And I would point out that if you go to norml.org/act, that's the action page that they have there. And at the top, there's the top 4 federal actions that we would like to have you participate in. So I just wanted to dump all that out there. And then I think I see, Julie, that one of these questions you would like to answer. There's an elected DA watching here today, and they're curious, how are you going to get prosecutors on board in cities that decriminalize? Even if Austin PD won't arrest for a possession of marijuana, also known as a POM, everyone else, like DPS, can and will still arrest. So this gentleman is, or this person, excuse me, I don't know who you are, is wondering, this patchwork of policy, it does create upward pressure towards the state level, but what does it really mean for real life implications for people?
This is a fantastic question, because I want to be clear that even these local measures do not legalize cannabis in our state. What our local measures do is decriminalize misdemeanor possession cases, and that would only affect local police departments. He is absolutely correct that this would not have any bearing on sheriff's departments or the Department of Public Safety. So they can still investigate, they can still pull you over, they can still cite you, they can arrest you. So it is a patchwork sort of, a way to try to exert more pressure on the state to formally legalize. And I do think, here's my personal thoughts are, we will eventually legalize. I think we're going to do medical first. I think full recreational, but every state that is legalized has started with a ballot initiative. And from there, state legislators have broadened the legalization in their own states. But
actually, I will tell you, the first time ever it's gone through the legislature was this year. So one state did legalize through the legislature this year, and I want to say it was Rhode Island. So I think enough of the ballot initiative states have started to create pressure on these other states to just be like, you have to address this issue. You cannot continue to ignore this issue.
Right. So what we are doing through the ballot initiatives is just taking one component of law enforcement out of the equation, but it does not, certainly does not have any bearing whatsoever on enforcement from sheriffs, which is the county, or DPS, which is the state. So if you're pulled over by either one of those law enforcement agencies, even within the city of Austin, you can still be cited and or arrested for Class A, Class B misdemeanor.
And so you may not know where the city limit is. And
I would also encourage people, go to the candidate forums and find out who is running for district attorney and whether they're going to prosecute these cases, and exert pressure on the candidates before they even get elected to say, we're not going to prosecute these sorts of cases. And again, if you have enough district attorneys, and there's prosecutorial discretion in the office of district attorney, you have prosecutorial discretion. Your resources are limited. Personally, I think prosecuting marijuana cases is really, really a terrible waste of resources when there are so many other crimes that need to have resources directed to. It's not cannabis usage. I'm sorry, it's just not. So my suggestion would be, go to these candidate forums, exert pressure on candidates while they're running for office, and get them to commit publicly that they're not going to prosecute these cases.
And to your point, Julie, I mean, truly, a lot of what's happening around the state is all about the discretion that people have. We saw DAs in Houston deciding that they wouldn't prosecute. That was their discretion. Before, Ground Game Texas got the initiative going locally, we passed a city resolution that removed the budgetary item for THC testing or any, law enforcement time to be spent on it. So I would just say that, it's a lot of discretion. What we have to do is change the state law. And these are important steps in putting more pressure forward, because you know, sometimes the governor likes to be like, oh, Austin, so progressive, not naughty, 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 right? And like whoop us, like we're so bad. But you know, if Denton does it, I'm sorry, Denton
Collin
real
does it?
conservative. So, you know, I mean, and that is another thing, you know, someone was talking about, you know, politics, political makeup here in Texas. And, you know, in the House, we've had super majorities on medical and decriminalization. We've had a lot of support for legalization, but it's the stranglehold that the lieutenant governor has in the Senate that has only allowed for hemp and medical things to advance. So it's really important that everybody be
And
engaged.
I want to be clear, not even real medical, compassionate use, which is a microcosm of medical. So Dan Patrick, and I'm just going to say it, I know y'all can't say, but I can. Dan Patrick is the holdup on the Senate side to actually having legalization in our state. One man can kill the entire thing in our state. And he has said he will never, ever allow legalization to come to the floor of the Senate.
Yeah, that's true. So also, I think that let me just double check on Facebook that I got all of the questions. But I did also want to briefly bring up, I think that I got them all, but I will double check because Facebook's just a little bit behind the Zoom feed. But I did want to mention to everybody that, guess what? Willie Nelson's Puff and Putt golf course out in Spicewood Springs is now open. And do you know what that means? Yeah. It means we're gonna have a puff and putt. It's a veteran golf benefit that we have been hosting. I think this is either our 7th or 8th one. We did have to take a couple of years off because of COVID, so that's a bummer. But we're gonna be back September 17th. We have tickets available on the site. We are finalizing a few things and we'll have music released and announced to you guys, but you know, it's going to be 5 or 6 amazing bands. We're going to have golf. We have vendors and food. It's a really fun time. And of course, Texas Veterans for Medical Marijuana will be there with a table so that you can talk to them about that. You know, they've been really working hard to get PTSD added to the list, which we did get last session. And this session, in addition to many other conditions that need to be added, one of their focuses is chronic pain, as well as traumatic brain injury, which ironically is not explicitly included in the neurologically degenerative disorders. That's a hard thing to say. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that is something that you can find information on, and I will put some information on it here in the comments. And I just wanted to, I guess, turn it over to Brandon and everybody for some closing comments.
Awesome. Thanks, Jax. Everybody, that's Jax James, our Executive Director of Texas NORML, for y'all that don't know. Appreciate that update. So excited about the Puff and Putt. That's going to be awesome to have that back. I would like to take a moment and just say thanks again to both of our speakers, Austin Zamhariri and of Texas Cannabis Collective. Go check them out. Please listen to that podcast. Get all your news there. It's fantastic. And Julie Oliver of Ground Game Texas, who is steadily working block by block to change the laws at a local level. I appreciate both of y'all being with us. Guys, you can always, donate to those groups, donate to Texas NORML, become a member, read those voter guides, get out and vote. Please get out and vote. That is the number one thing you can do. That is community engagement. Vote in your local elections, vote in your county elections, vote in your state elections, obviously vote in your national elections, but get out and vote. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you, guys. Do either one of you have any closing statements you'd like to make?
I just want to share with people, not only vote, but you have so much influence over your friends and your network. And the biggest nudge that you could do is say, hey, can we go vote together? If you want to double your influence or triple your influence, get 1 or 2, maybe even 3 friends or family members or coworkers to go vote with you. And you share with them who the good candidates are. That's how we affect change at the state level. And it is so necessary right now.
And I'll just add on top of that sometimes we get very defeated by national politics or even state politics because of how big our state is, and we don't have a lot of control over some of those, how those issues are being handled. However, you will be shocked at how effective 1 or 2 or 3 people can be in a local city. and how much noise they can make at a city council meeting, and how much they can just be loud on the city blocks of all of their peers and neighbors. And that right there is where this reform work begins, is at the local levels, just to reiterate that. So thank you guys so much for having me.
And I'll
Absolutely.
just say, Brandon, to bounce off of Julie, I'll close it with this, yes, go out to vote. Yes, get your friends out to vote. Yes, be registered to vote. That's the big push right now. But voting is part of it. The rest of it is being out at the Capitol, out at your city hall, connecting with your community, making this a conversation point, talking to candidates, getting education on the subject. So we have to be active, not just in the ballot box, but on the streets and in our communities. So that's all I have to say about what I think we really have to focus on in the next few months.
Absolutely. And couldn't say it better than any of y'all. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you all again. Thank you everyone for joining us, whether you're watching us live on Facebook or later on our YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff so that you can keep up to date with everything we got going on. Talk to y'all later.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right.
Bye.